Vladimir Putin is actually secretly a liberal boomer. And why do I mean that? Well, actually, he said quite a few things, and the state of Russia is not quite the same as some people might have you believe. And now I'm not picking on Tucker Carlson here, although it's just an example of some people going to Russia and saying, hey, maybe they're doing things right compared to the rest of the world. And I feel like perhaps let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater a little bit. And I'm not hating on Russia for any particular reason. It's just that I find people saying these sorts of things annoying. So it's more out of personal inconvenience to me that I'm saying this, more than anything. I want you to be truthful and accurate in your views of the world. So, you're
saying that some people on the dissident right, some people on the right, people like us or Tucker or whoever, paint Russia out as being
this traditional utopia or something like that.
Yeah. And it's not.
And you want to emigrate there and stuff. Yeah,
it's a little bit silly because, as we'll see, actually, a lot of the problems that we use to complain about the West and how we're doing things wrong are just as present in Russia, if not worse. So obviously, Tucker went out to there and was saying how cheap the groceries were because, of course, he was paying with US dollars in mind. And as the community note says here, to understand the international price differences, the average wage in Russia is 73,383 rubles per month, which equates to $791 with today's exchange rate. So whenever this was posted,
so
15th of February.
So food's way cheaper, but you're going to be earning loads less.
So basically, over 60% of Russians spend half of their salary on food, according to Russia's state-owned news agency, which in Britain, if you're spending over half of your money in food, you would be very poor.
Some people do, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They do, yes.
It's a pretty bad ratio. You don't really want to be spending half your money on food, do you?
No, you're too busy spending half of it on rent, aren't you?
So a lot of it's seasonal, remember, in Russia as well. They do really go via the seasons a lot of the time. So there are some things that aren't available. We have everything available all the time, don't we? In Russia, they just don't. So, I mean, your staples can be, your potatoes, your chicken breast. Well, chicken breast is quite expensive, I think, actually. I looked at that. Yeah.
We had Roreg Nationalist on a few months back, and he was talking about how loads of people in Russia got allotments or grow their own stuff in their garden. Yeah. Loads of people. It's a massive thing.
It is a big thing, yeah.
Anyway. That's a good idea just for its own sake.
Right, yeah.
I think it's just good for you psychologically to do that. And I think that actually a lot of people are deifying something that they don't necessarily understand fully. For example, Vladimir Putin, who has sort of been the figurehead of Russia. He's not always been the leader in the past 25 years, but he's at least played a significant role. I mean, is it Medvedev?
Medvedev. He was always Putin's puppet.
Exactly.
Poodle, though.
Yeah,
he was always still Vladimir Putin at the bottom of it all.
And so he's been the leader for quite some time. And so I think it's fair to look at how the country is doing and how this reflects on his leadership, because I think that he's been in office far long enough to say that he is responsible for the way the country is today.
Yep.
And this is an interesting comment. This is the reason I've decided to cover this. He says, nationalism is the first stage towards Nazism, the first step, because nationalism is not just based on the love of your own ethnicity, but also hatred of others. And I don't think that's the case at all.
Patriotism or nationalism? I mean, there's
nationalism.
What is the definition here? Because I always get them confused between patriotism and nationalism. So which one's which?
There's not really much difference between the two, is there? I think nationalism is a bit more ideological in that.
Maybe, yeah. But you sort of see what he's saying there, because I think a lot of leaders, of course, have to try and. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that are listening to these leaders. They're not all intellectual. They haven't got an IQ of over 120, have they? You know what I mean? You've got to cater for the people that are. So I kind of see what he's saying there. He's trying to accommodate everyone's interpretation by saying, you know what, if we push nationalism, then of course it's also, you've got to be careful about hating on other people. So I get what he's kind of saying. I'm known as a Putin apologist, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, we've been accused of being.
I'm not surprised. Everyone is.
Not front for the bloody Kremlin.
Not after this segment, though.
Yeah, hopefully not after this segment.
My parting gift.
A few things I'll say that.
You'll take it with you.
All sorts of people define both patriotism and nationalism in all sorts of different ways.
Sure.
It's just messy, isn't it? But nonetheless, I think there's a couple of quick things to say about Putin saying this. It will be absolutely calculated. If I think we know about Putin for sure, he's a calculated political player. I mean, Alex, the Steam guy, had a good tweet. He said, well, nationalism is the enemy of empire in various ways.
I was going to touch on exactly that.
He's sort of I don't necessarily believe that narrative particularly, but he's sort of in the empire building business on some very small, limited level.
Well, Russia
and of course,
is a country of lots and lots of different ethnicities, isn't it? Because of its vast size.
Right.
Huge.
And so what he's probably thinking of is that I'm ruling over these disparate ethnic groups, and it's not just, they've flooded the country with diversity. They were, indigenous to these specific areas, many of these ethnic groups. And so it's not like they don't have a legitimate claim to their area or anything like that. It's just by merit of having to rule over such a large area, which encompasses lots of peoples, lots of disparate peoples, that I think he's had to approach this in a way where he's trying to give everyone a national ethos that doesn't put them against each other.
Sure.
absolutely.
Sure.
And that's exactly what's going on here. And it's interesting as well that
It just so happens that it could have been a line straight out of a Guardian
Exactly.
article.
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
But they're coming at from very different worldviews.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I thought it was interesting to talk about this. And another thing he said before, here he is, this was a little while ago now, May of 23, our adversaries, people with neo-colonial mindsets, half-wits, in fact, are unable to realise that diversity makes us stronger. So Vladimir Putin openly coming out and saying diversity is our strength.
Again,
Interesting, isn't it?
is he addressing the sort of Inuit of Siberia?
Well,
Right, I mean,
well, let's be
or
honest.
whatever, the Chechens, whatever.
There's a difference, isn't there, between the way Putin rules, you may like it or may may not like it, and the way that someone like Rishi Sunak rules, where when he was voted in, I think the Prime Minister of India gave him a call and said, congratulations, there's an Indian man now running the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so we've got to be realistic about that. What he's saying is, this is Russia first, and he celebrates that. He's got the Russian flag everywhere. We don't do that, do we? We don't go, this is England, or this is, because we have this thing about England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. We have this thing about the UK. Are we Great Britain? Are we British? Because if we call us English, and all of a sudden I'm a nationalist, but then if I call us, you know what I mean? If I call us Great Britain, then all of a sudden the Scots hates me. And if I say, well, okay, it's the UK then, the Irish are going, hang on a second, we don't want to be part. You can't win. And that's the problem with the fragmenting of our identity. And that he's not doing that. He's bringing everyone together. And that's why he's saying diversity makes us stronger, because he's saying, look, everyone, we're collecting everyone under one unified banner. We don't do this here. We celebrate the Pakistani population, and we call them communities, don't we? We say the Jewish community. We've heard it, the Pakistani community. We celebrate, it's like, well, if you're going to do that, if you're going to celebrate communities, then you're never going to get any national pride.
It is also worth mentioning as well that Putin is saying this after some pretty intense Russification policies in these ethnic communities in the 19th and 20th centuries. This is, both under Tsarism as well as under the Bolsheviks. So that has already gone on and somewhat homogenized the culture to some degree already. And so he's able to say this because they've been part of this empire, if you will, for quite some time. And
the project of the Muscovites controlling a vast swathe of the globe's surface is always going to be a sort of a coalition building, multi-ethnic building project, right? So again, that could have been said by someone on Radio 4 or in The Guardian. But I think he's actually talking about he is talking about something very different, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely very different. And that's what we need to look at. You cannot say that right now we're a better country for the amount of diversity we have in it.
Certainly
it's
not
not possible. We're about to have a war internally between Indians and Pakistanis. I mean, how is that? How is that? Like, it doesn't make sense. What he's saying makes sense because he's got people from all over his country fighting in Ukraine right now on the same side. That's what he means by diversity making us stronger. We can come again, national pride. We can actually go and try and, we're going to bring up Ukraine now. It's going to destroy, what we're doing. I hate to say it, but you know what I mean? There's a book, by the way. I'll just recommend a book to people called Putin by Philip Short. And there's another book called Putin's Wars. I can't remember who did it, but the Putin's Wars is quite analytical, but Putin is about the man himself. It's a great book. It's quite big. Have it as an audio book. Play it in the car. But if you really want to know about the man, and it's not that nice about him, but it's very factual. Have a read of it. Putin by Philip Short. It's a great book. A lot of people are commenting, by the way, without knowledge, and that's what I find so dangerous on social media. They haven't educated themselves about it. Haven't watched a documentary. Haven't, you know what I mean? They just comment Putin bad man. You know what I mean? It's basic, isn't it? It's elementary. It's like IQ level of 4.
But also moral judgments are pretty easy to make.
Well, of course you can make it. Yeah, Putin, he's been the bad man forever, hasn't he? You know what I mean? Of course he has.
And by the way, I am going to say that I don't approve of him. I do think he's a bad man. I'm just going to throw that one out there. just in case someone is saying, "Oh, you're doing apologia."
What's the matter with you?
I always say that whenever I'm throwing shade at Zelensky. I always have to go. But I do think Putin is
This is
a
weakness,
killer.
Bo. This is
I
weakness.
do
is what
think
this
he's a killer.
is. You know what I mean?
He has murdered lots of his political opponents.
Absolutely. Has he stopped the country from being fragmented, though, by the gangs internally? Now, what do you want out of a leader? And this is why I'm called a Putin apologist. I'm like, it works in Russia. For us, abhorrent in our luxury belief Western world in which we live, let's be a bit courageous here and go, yeah, Russia's working under that guy. Most guys couldn't hold Russia together. If you think it's bad now, wait till he's not in power and see who comes in and replaces him.
I do think he's one of the better leaders Russia's had in the past 200 years, and that's not really saying very much because they've had a rough time of it. And being a sort of student of Russian history, I do feel very sorry for the Russian people. They've suffered more hardship than I thought possible, and it's a history that I think they look back on and makes them very cynical about their politics.
I think Gorbachev, when he broke up, he actually was allowing the investment into Russia, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. And I don't think we took that. I think we've shunned Russia to maintain an enemy.
That's true. So the incentives were just too strong.
Of course. Can you imagine if all of a sudden we weren't building up? Well, we don't, but the Americans didn't have to build their military up. How are they going to employ the vast amount of people as they do? How are they going to go and take the resources that we need to take? I say we as I'm a collective, but by having a unified enemy, you can always lobby that, can't you? We need more regiments because of Russia, and unfortunately, he's given that. I think he said that before, actually.
So one of the things that Putin said as well is that he's in favour of mixed ethnicity marriages, as long as it's Russians internally doing so, and that's one thing that I've seen people just factually get wrong about Putin.
Oh, right, okay.
And I wanted to include that. But one thing that supposedly traditional Russia has is a problem with divorce rates, because this is something that I think has its origin in the Soviet Union. They've got one of the Russia has among the highest divorce rates in the world, although they've slightly declined in recent years, and it was highest apparently in the 1960s. So it is a sort of relic of the Soviet era. But once it sort of takes hold of the public consciousness, it becomes a problem afterwards. You can still see this in some of the westernized former Soviet satellite states. They still have comparable levels of corruption that they had under the Soviet Union, because it's created a culture after the fact, even though they're not living under the Soviet system. It seems to be just something that if you have communism, you will have corruption, even if you give up that communism.
I definitely know that under the Stalinist period and during the worst excesses of the Maoist period in China, suicide was through the roof, abortion was through the roof, divorce or just not getting married in the first place was through the roof. Yes, because it's really, really, really horrible, unhealthy, unnatural way to live.
Well, it's a sign of fundamental problems.
Right, yeah. I'm surprised that they still, mildly surprised, but what do I know? I just would have thought where they've got sort of Russian Orthodox Christianity, I would have thought they might be exempt a bit from high divorce rates, but I guess not.
Can we just look at this study, though, from the National Library of Medicine? Can we just recognise that's probably one of the greatest titles ever? Mm-hmm. The longitudinal prediction of divorce in Russia, the role of individual and couple drinking patterns. I want to read that. Is that why divorce is so high? Because they're not drinking at the same time. You know what I mean?
It's going to give you advice, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The takeaway is vodka good.
Yeah, it must be.
Couples that drink together stay together. That's what I want to have the conclusion.
Yeah.
So another thing that's worth mentioning as well, the fertility rate in Russia is very similar to the European contemporaries here. If I pull this up a little bit, you can see that the Russian line sort of gets caught along with...
What colour is Russia, sorry?
Dark red, isn't it?
It's like a sort of maroony colour there.
Same, isn't it?
Yeah, so...
It's all in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah, it's very comparable. This is why I try and argue that Russia's still a European country, at least part of it.
Well, it is in Europe, yeah.
The western side of Russia.
Yeah, but it's culturally European as well, isn't it? And in many ways.
Sure, yeah, the western.
Russia is largely western, isn't it? When you think of the cities and everything, it's predominantly western, isn't it? As in, geographically, most population lives in the west, isn't it? Am I right?
Oh, yeah, so, the vast majority, yeah. There are still, what is it, like Vladivostok?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are some cities way out east, but yeah, the vast majority of it is. Yeah, of course. Their heritage, when you look at, like, I don't know, like Dostoevsky or... Mm-hmm.
There's some of my favourite classical music composers are Russians. I think they've got a culture to be proud of, as with many.
You'll be cancelled for that.
I know.
You'll be killed.
The annoying thing is as well, my favourite composers are either German or Russian. So
Okay, you're in trouble.
there we go.
You
My
can tell the
ancestors
difference
would be sad.
between someone from St. Petersburg or Moscow from someone that's from Central Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they're not Central Asian, ethnically speaking, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very big country, isn't it? And it's also this is list of countries by abortion rate.
Interesting. All right.
So this is something that lots of people who are concerned with traditional living. So I'm starting from the bottom here, Algeria. This is the per capita rate here,
Okay.
I think.
Yep.
That's the one you really want to look at, so it's a fair comparison.
Quite
The
low.
raw numbers, Albania's a much smaller population, therefore they've got fewer numbers, but per capita it's higher. But you see lots of European countries here, Austria, Croatia, Lithuania, Turkey, depending on who you ask, maybe not Stelios, Slovakia, Serbia, Italy.
These are some of the
Singapore.
lowest in the whole world.
Japan,
Religious.
Luxembourg, Germany, Portugal, Montenegro, Ukraine,
Religion must play a big part.
Latvia, Czech Republic, the Netherlands, and then you're going up. There's Poland, Hungary, Israel. There's New Zealand. Where's Russia's here somewhere? Where is it?
Is it in the middle? You haven't hit Russia. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It is 100 and where is it? I've got
Keep going.
112th. Sorry, there we go. There we go. There's Russia,
13, yeah.
almost right next to the United States. There.
We are.
It's next to Iceland. There's Canada, New Zealand. We're actually,
We worse than that?
yeah, we're
I
worse.
did not know that. 20.
There's France. Yeah,
Only
there
about
we go.
mid-table, though.
We're
Only about mid-table.
we're still at
Not
92.
good,
Yeah, we still got all
Who
of
tops
these
the tables out of interest?
countries. Greenland.
Greenland.
Yeah, you
It's
can
just
tell
a
them
small
all.
population. Then
Yeah,
it's
but that per
Vietnam.
capita
Yeah.
wouldn't matter, though, would it?
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter. But
In sheer numbers, as well. India, China, Pakistan, Nigeria. So it's just countries with very
so what's
large
happening in
populations.
Greenland, though?
I don't
Per
know.
capita is per capita. Doesn't matter how many people are there.
I know. Yeah.
There's only 8 people there. They had 2 abortions. Top of the list.
Boom.
Yeah.
I know their population is tiny. Isn't their population like 50,000,
it's not many,
60,000 or whatever? Does it even
Well,
say what it is?
About to take over America, isn't it? America.
Vietnam, Madagascar, Guinea-Bissau, Cuba. I would never have guessed those countries.
No, India's
Someone
still
asked
there
me to
for
guess.
per capita as
No,
well,
I would
which
never
you
have
never
guessed.
would have guessed
It's not a
either.
religious issue, then, is it? I mean,
No.
I saw Italy. Italy's a very religious country, and they're right down
Yeah.
the bottom, aren't they?
Yeah.
So has Hinduism, I know we're getting a bit off topic, has
No, no.
Hinduism not got any problem with...
I don't
No
know much
idea.
about
Abortion.
Hinduism, really.
You can make it up.
I only know the
Yeah,
basics.
let's just make it...
Yeah, Hinduism. Yeah. Oh, yeah, those Hindus. Oh,
Another thing as well, Russia has the largest Muslim population in Europe.
Yep.
It is 14 million officially, or 10% of the total population. Of course, you can see it's heavily weighted in certain
Got
areas.
their Middle Eastern areas.
Exactly.
Chechnya and stuff like that.
Those
Yeah.
are rookie numbers. Give us 5 years.
So,
It's not funny, but...
It's not funny, is it?
it's morbid,
I can't
yeah.
help but laugh.
Jeez.
So, obviously, they've not always got along. I know in
Yeah.
the 90s, the Chechens, I know it was a little bit before I was born, but I know about it. I know it happened.
You feel old yet, Tim?
Well, Chechens are fighting in Ukraine now.
That's true, yeah.
Chechens fighting with Russia in Ukraine, yeah. So I mean, it's factional breakaway, people within these groups, isn't it? Warlords and stuff. But yeah, I mean, oh yeah. I'll tell you, that's a good thing about Putin's wars. Only to say about Putin's wars. One of the things Putin's wars goes into quite heavily is the reactionary nature of Putin's conflicts. Unlike America's, where they go in and they change a country and then they resource come out, Putin, things will flare up. He'll go like Georgia. He'll go in, suppress, maybe leave a little force in there, and then come back out again. I can't really describe it that well because I'm not clever enough. But if people want to read about the way Putin or the way Russia deals with conflict, I mean, I could tell you right now. I mean, America's got 3,000 overseas bases, so 3,000 bases outside the United States. Russia is 21. This is why I get called a Putin apologist for something called facts. But it is a fact, though, isn't it? So when we're looking at
it is a fact,
Russia expanding, being the aggressor, trying to improve its empire, is it with 21 bases? It's not, is it? We're smoking a crack pipe, right? It's not true. But who is? Well, America's got 3,000. Let's be realistic now. It's just figures, isn't it? But again, that's quite a good book to read if you want.
Perhaps aircraft carries the ability to project your power abroad. America's got 20 or something, or 10 at sea at any times. Russia's got one old dilapidated steamer.
Well, we're not even letting them have that, are we? We're not letting them have Sevastopol, even in Crimea. We can talk about this all day if you want. They're releasing Crimea from Ukraine on $99 million a year until 2042. That's why they put the little green men in, because once Yanukovych was ousted in the coup and Poroshenko came in, I believe it was, and looked to EU and looked, basically, I want to join Europe. They realised they were going to lose Crimea, so they went in and took it. Crimea's got a huge water problem. People don't know this stuff. Sevastopol is the only base they've really got which isn't freeze over. The whole of northern Russia, all the bases.
It's been a problem since Tsarist times.
Absolutely right. Yeah, Crimean. I mean, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's why they took Crimea, to give themselves some access to the Mediterranean Sea. But knowledge, education, we don't need that, do we?
No, not at all.
Bitter now.
So another thing they have is hate crime legislation, because of course if you are ruling over a large swathe of multiple ethnicities, what you need is the law to persecute people who target them. So anyone commits an offence by anything motivated by political, ideological, racial, ethnic or religious hatred. So this can lead to a harsher sentence for something that's already an offence. And I don't need to tell people that, you know, you don't have freedom of speech in Russia. I think we all know that one, don't we? Let's be honest.
Well, that is one, for me, one of the worst sort of black marks on Putin's record is the number of journalists who have disappeared or just been murdered because they're too dissident, or number of opposition politicians that have an accident. I mean, you don't want to live in that country.
Most dangerous place in Russia is near a balcony, because they're just really, really dangerous.
Slippery.
For whatever reason.
No railings. You know.
That's it.
But also remember, he does clamp down on speech against him.
Yeah, right.
Specifically against him. If you want to talk about other stuff, they don't really care. You're not going to get in for a tweet or for against whatever the lady, I can't remember her name now, Lucy Connolly. Her tweet, he wouldn't care about that. It doesn't matter, does it? You know what I mean? Let's go and burn down a hotel. He doesn't care about that. Let's go and burn down a hotel. Doesn't care. It's not about him. Anything to do with him and his position, anything that might unstable him, come down like a ton of bricks.
If you accuse him of being a pedo, you get polonium poisoned.
Twice. But anything other than that, they just don't care. I mean, I think they put like 4,000 people. I mean, I don't know what the figures are, but significantly fewer people have gone to prison for speech on their internet, whatever, than have gone over in the UK. It's much bigger here.
Orders of magnitude, isn't it?
What a remarkable thing.
I know.
Yeah, it's weird. But again, it's about him. So he cares about him and his position of stability. That's what he cares about. The rest of it, he couldn't care less.
So one final thing before I go is just the number of state-owned industries. I've just got this up on screen to show there's a Wikipedia page, but I'm just going to power through and read them really quickly. So in the energy sector, they've got Gazprom, which is a gas company, Rosneft, which is oil, Transneft, which is the oil pipeline transportation company. In defence, almost all arms manufacturers are state-owned. In the banking sector, they've got multiple different banks. Transport infrastructure, they've got railways, airlines, also their ports and airports. All of the strategic ones are state-owned. There are large agri-holdings that often receive state support. And then media and telecommunications, obviously they've got their own state-controlled broadcasters and telecommunications. And so it's almost like the Soviet Union hasn't ended to a certain degree. People forget this. People forget that actually Russia's very, very different in this respect still than, say, Europe or North America. There's a significant portion of their industry is still fairly communistically run. And one final thing, just for the sake of transparency, is they're not always this way. They're not always quite liberal and boomerish. As we can see here, they passed a bill outlawing gender reassignment, just in general, which no Western country has done yet. And also there's lots of legislation in place to prevent people basically promoting this as a lifestyle as well.
No gender reassignment surgery whatsoever. They're going
as far as I understand it, just
it's interesting, isn't it?
Outlawing the procedures more generally. It doesn't necessarily specify, and they explicitly say it's promoting the country's traditional values. And it's passed unanimously.
I wouldn't have thought that was going to damage traditional values by having gender reassignment. There are people that really, really see themselves in a different gender, gender dysphoria, whatever. I don't know why you wouldn't allow that to be done, or not gender dysphoria, is it? But if you honestly felt you wanted to be in a different body, they've got to go outside the country to get it done now, though.
I guess so. So, that's one thing that perhaps it differs, but it was just introducing a bit of perspective there, because I think that people tend to find it easier to promote things that they don't necessarily understand. But when you look into Russia, actually, they're not that different from Western liberals who you would otherwise criticise. So we've got this weird dynamic where people on the right are saying, actually, some things in Russia they're doing correctly. Well, actually, a lot less than you think. You'd be surprised. If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, Head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.